Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Rotor Talk Live Season 3, Episode 2. How is everyone this evening? Mr. Marcus Crawford, how are you this evening?
Doing darn good, Bill. A little bit of a cold still, but we'll muddle on through.
Yes, we will. And Mr. Ron Brown, how are you this evening?
I'm doing excellent, Bill. Life's good here, except when it comes to the FAA.
Well, we're going to be talking about the FAA tonight. I'm going to welcome everybody in the chat. Drone Masters here, Johnny Drone Flyer, Stephen Ewing, Ted Bowman, Lauren's here tonight. Thank you guys for stopping by and showing up. We have a jam-packed show. Oracle Miata's here. Let's see who else. Eagle Eye Images, Ted Bowman. Okay, Jaybird's here tonight. All right, got a good crew. And we want to remember Al Duran. He's had his surgery today, so let's kind of keep him in our thoughts and prayers. He had that knee replacement today. So we got a jam-packed show. We got a lot going on tonight. And I think the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk to Marcus. And he was our man on the floor, ZinoNation and Rotor Talk Live's man on the floor at CES 2020. Marcus, can you give us some highlights of CES 2020 and tell us what your favorite experience was there? Go for it.
Oh gosh, Bill, to say there was a favorite, it'd be tough because,
it always a favorite.
Well, all of us, we just would be like kids in a candy store, right? And not just talking about drones, but every kind of electronic device you could think of. And Lauren was there too. And I'll bet you, I'd like to hear what he has to say. But, I saw maybe 25% of it, if I'm lucky, maybe not even that. And it was a lot of hours on your feet every day. But drone wise, of course, obviously spent a lot of time on the drones. The Autel Evo 2, and they gave me a little swag here. I got to show this. See that light up pen that says Autel. So that's what you get if you go to the Autel booth. And they did give away some drones as well. But that's was, obviously drone wise, I'm going to say the Evo 2 was the star of the show. It's clearly the one that had the most technology in it and the most promise, particularly if we're talking about the swappable cameras, etc. I ran into our friend Billy Kyle there. We had a nice exchange, got to meet his lovely fiance as well. And then the other drone, the next one that impressed me was the Power Egg X, simply because it brings so much to the table. It's at a fairly reasonable price point. You can detach the main body of the drone and use it as a handheld camera, has a microphone in it as well. And it also has a waterproof component where you put a cover on it and you can literally fly it in the rain, snow, or whatever. And then it had float attachments, so you could literally land it on the water, which is, if you were jet skiing or something like that, I can see where that might be a handy thing to have. So it was an interesting piece. Of course, the V-Copter was there. You really didn't get to see much of the V-Copter. They didn't have a flying version of it or anything, but it was a static display. I'd be interested to hear what Lauren thought of it. To me, the controller, it's definitely a toy grade controller. Any of you folks that fly the Hubsan Zino, it felt kind of like that, right? I mean, not like what we're used to with DJI or even the FIMI X8 SE. It just was a little bit cheaper. So it'll be interesting to see how that drone pans out. The other drone display that impressed me was Swell Pro. They had a fairly small display, but they had a couple of their waterproof drones there. And I didn't realize the Swell Pro, gosh, I can't remember the model number of it, but it's the one that looks kind of like a Phantom. It has exchangeable cameras on it. And they had several different kind of cameras, including infrared. And then they also had a device on there that would drop a life preserver to somebody. And that thing can literally land in the water and take off out of the water. It won't go underwater, but it will land in the water. So that was that was interesting. And then beyond that, so if we're talking about other than drones, man, you've never seen so many 8K TVs in your life. I got to see Bill the Drone Reviewer's dream. Just the Samsung display itself was about as big as a normal Best Buy store. And they were smart. They had theirs like, it was almost like a building within a building, and a little bit of everything, and some huge wall display 8K TVs that were just phenomenal. And then there were, the other thing that impressed me is that there were brands that you've never heard of that appeared to have some pretty high quality audio video equipment too. But then there were also a number of OEM suppliers from China. If you don't think China makes most of the electronics, all you had to do was walk through there. There were row after row after row after row of OEM suppliers that were hoping to talk to an OEM that they could build whatever their little widget they happen to be selling. So that was kind of an interesting aspect that you just don't realize. And then the other big theme was autonomous vehicles, both aerial and ground. Number of companies working on that stuff, and it's coming pretty quick. I did a video, I dropped it yesterday, about the Hyundai Uber version of their transportation service. And you look at that thing, it's just a giant drone, is what it is. I mean, that's what it looks like, vertical takeoff and landing. And then they weren't the only ones working on that. Bell Helicopter had a version of it. So there's a number of companies that are working on changing transportation, and a lot of it is aerial, is what they have in mind. In other words, you know, you're out in the suburbs, you're going to get on one of those things that are going to take you to downtown or whatever, and then you connect with another ground-based transportation and get to where you need to go. So it was just an education, and it was interesting to see. So I probably bored you all to death already, but
no, absolutely
that's kind of the size of it.
Absolutely not. I guess here's my question for you. Who did you find, what booth did you find the employees being the most friendly there? Which one?
Gosh, you know what? The Swell Pro people were really friendly. And then, you know, I looked at the cameras, and the of course the OnePlus was really a busy booth, action cameras. But the people at GoPro especially were really friendly and went out of their way to be friendly and explain things. And so I'm gonna, if I was to say the display that I had the best experience at, I would probably say GoPro.
Awesome. That is absolutely positively awesome. You know, and next year I know Ron and I are planning on going as well. So you'll have ZinoNation will be representative. Rotor Talk Live will be represented there, and you will have three gentlemen who in the evening will be sticking their feet up on some kind of ottoman, resting them, trying to rest for the next day.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Hey, Marcus, how was the Hubsan booth?
Well, of course, there was no Hubsan booth. And you know what? I was sad about that. I wish there had been. They should be there. And you know who else wasn't there was FEMI. They should be there as well. I mean, you know, there were a ton of other Chinese Shenzhen-based companies there. I honestly don't know why they weren't.
You know, that's a perfect segue, Ron, because the next part of tonight's show, we're going to talk about a Zino 2 update. Now, most people are aware about the Zino 2, and I'm sure, you know, I've done a few videos on it, and some people have actually gotten notifications that they've shipped. Now, I know myself, I haven't gotten mine. I went out. I go out at least 2 times a day to check it, and I still don't have it as of tonight. Is that the same for both of you guys?
Give me just a second here. I'll tell you.
Phil, I checked about an hour before the show, and mine was still in the paid stats. It still hasn't even moved back yet.
Yeah, that's same with mine. Yeah.
Same here, guys. I just looked.
Okay. All
And
right.
Marcus,
All
you should
three
be,
of us are
and Marcus, you're
are
5
in
days
in the
ahead of
same
us.
boat here. Um, what I do understand was, and one of the things that I do want to pass on, and I noticed out there, and somebody posted it out on my Facebook group. And the Facebook group, there's a link in the description if you guys want to check that out, is that they've extended the sale, which they must be selling very well right now. For them to go ahead and extend this
Oh, really?
sale for $399, I think they're doing very well. I think they've gotten a great response from it. So this is going to be real interesting. And the other item of note with this too is that they've already done, and I think was it Bermuda Bob posted in the group that they've already done an update to the app out on Apple. Of course, the Android app still shows as not available, but there's a way to get it, but it shows not available in your country. So we'll stay tuned on all that information. So
and Bill, can I interject the update to the X Play app for Hubsan? It updated the ability to do firmware updates through the app.
Ron, that is music to my ears. I'll tell you that right now. And all of you who have had the original Zino, and I know for both Ron and Marcus, that was a huge pain point for a lot of people, and it took a lot of work. It took a lot of dedication to be able to do those firmware updates, and crossing your fingers. And that's all I have to say on that. And I know, and if you want to see a great video on that, see John Coopy's video on doing firmware updates on the Zino 1, because he did a fantastic video on that. So, okay, we're done with the Zino for tonight. Now we're going to move on here, and I know this is a real interesting topic, because I just found out the other day that DJI did a firmware update on their smart controller. Now I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here, and want to go over this, and got some interesting things to talk about with this. So let's go ahead here. I'm going to read, I'm not going to read you the overview, but we're going to go over what's new here. Now, the firmware version is V01.00.06550. And there'll be a link in the description for you guys to go ahead and check this out. Now, what's new? Added quick fly function. Quick fly can be enabled in settings. Once enabled, the remote controller automatically enters the camera view of DJI Go 4 after powering on if the remote controller is already paired with the aircraft. Number 2, added SkyTalk. Go to DJI Lab under settings to enable. Once SkyTalk is enabled, the live view from the aircraft can be shared with friends via third-party social media apps. Number 4, optimize the process of selecting the default storage location. Reduce the frequency with which a smart controller would restart. The next one, added audio recording during screen recording. Before recording the screen, go to sound under settings to disable or enable audio recording for screen recording. And the last, added electronic quick start guide for the smart controller. Now, under the notes, and this is something that's really important, and I can't emphasize this enough, it says the firmware version contains important updates, and the smart controller can only be updated to this firmware version by using DJI Assistant 2. Download the latest DJI Assistant 2, then follow the steps in System Updates section in DJI Smart Controller User Manual. Download DJI Assistant 2 and there's a link for the downloads there. And it also can tell you, this is why on the overview, it will also tell you that the DJI Assistant 2 for Mavic, the version number, because I had an issue with trying to do a firmware update before, and it was because I had the older DJI Assistant 2 for Mavic. So make sure that you have the latest information here. Okay, what's interesting about all of this is with the exception of this quick fly function, I've already beta tested all this information. Okay, I've already beta tested this. What is missing from this is the DJI Phantom 4 Pro V2.0. That was included in the beta testing, and it's not here. And I know there were some comments written down here, and let's see if I can find them here real quick. Now I know David Kluge. Well, first of all, the first version of the firmware update the language was coming out as Chinese. So they quickly pulled the firmware update, and DJI did correct that. Okay. That was the first thing that was noticed. Now, the second thing is, and like David said, and I'm trying to find his comment here, is that, why don't you have Phantom 4 Pro V2.0 on here? And, I was like, right away, I'm like, oh, it's not here. Because I was told, oh, there's a firmware update. And I'm going, oh, this is great. So it's going to include the Phantom 4 Pro V2.0. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't. I'm trying to go through here. And yeah, they pulled the original version. Okay. That's David's comment there about that. Moving on down here. Thanks for bearing with me, guys. Okay. Let's go to the third. I think there's been more comments left because, and here I left a comment. I thought with the re-release of the DJI Phantom 4 Pro V2.0 and with beta testing of the Phantom 4 Pro V2.0 and the smart controller, it would be included in this release. I can't tell you what an incredible experience it is to use the smart controller with the Phantom 4 Pro V2.0. Hopefully this will happen shortly in the next update. Now, David, here's his post, and we're going to, I was able to find that here. I think they removed the Phantom 4 Pro V2.0 integration that was in the 560 firmware beta. I don't own a Phantom 4 Pro V2.0, but had done some testing with a friend a while back during the beta program. When I go look at aircraft management screen in my settings, my friend's Phantom 4 Pro V2.0 is now showing an icon of a Mavic 2 Zoom instead of the Phantom 4 Pro V2.0. If I'm right, I don't understand why they didn't keep this integration. It worked really well from my short experience, and I don't recall seeing anything negative from other beta testers. With the re-release of the Phantom 4 Pro V2.0 in the past few days, it seems this would have been a great opportunity to bolster that release. Seems like a missed opportunity, doesn't it? Gentlemen, I'm interested in hearing your comments on this.
Well, Bill, we talked about this a little bit last night, and I didn't think of this last night, but could this be a possibility? It was always, the Phantom 4 returning had been a rumor since the fall, well, late summer, early fall. And, it was definitely going to come out in September, October. It didn't. Well, maybe even people at DJI were confused. Maybe they didn't think it was going to come out till the last minute, and the software people didn't get the memo. So they took it out, figuring it no use leaving in because there was no more V2s coming out.
That's a good point, Ron. You may be right on that. I mean, because this doesn't make sense. It just is off the wall, and it doesn't make sense, because I can tell you from having my beta experience, and there's some videos out there on my channel where I've flown it, and I can tell you guys this: flying with the controller from the Phantom 4 is good. Flying with the controller from the smart controller with a Phantom 4 Pro is off the charts. Okay. Your movements are so much more precise. You have better control over it, and having that screen on there was incredible. Okay. Because, obviously here in Florida, it's bright a lot of the time down here, and it's very easy to see in bright light. Marcus, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, I can tell you this much, at CES, that was the big thing at the DJI booth, or their display. They had that V2.0 all over the place. So clearly they're interested in selling them. So I kind of think it's kind of like what Ron was talking about. And any of us that have worked for a large corporation can understand how sometimes one silo doesn't talk to the other silo. So that could very well be it.
And the bigger the company, the more likely that not talking to the silo could happen. And Bill, can we circle back to a little conversation we had recently where I discovered that on DJI's website, you could buy the Phantom 4 V2.0 alone without a remote controller. So that even lends more cadence to that this app, the smart controller should be ready for that drone, because somebody that already owns a smart controller could just buy the drone and not have to get the controller. And I'm going to let you take up. But I want to throw in one thing. You know, the smart controller is definitely easy to fly. It's much better than using the Mavic 1 or 2, you know, little controller with the smaller sticks. But it's a slight upgrade over the Phantom controller. But the Phantom controller is still a step up from your standard Mavic controllers. Throwing it back to Bill now. I said all I'm going to say.
Well, you know what? And Ron brought up a very good point about it being available by itself out there. Okay. And Ron's right. And Marcus is right. Okay. You know, having that out there, they're emphasizing, I mean, the emphasis at CES was on the Phantom 4 Pro V2.0. And then they come out with this firmware update, which now, mind you, it's been months since DJI came out with a firmware update on the Phantom 4 Pro or on the smart controller. And everybody was just been, now I can tell you, I get at least 1 or 2 emails a day from subscribers saying, Bill, is there any update? Because they know that I was beta testing. Do you think it's going to be included in this firmware update? And it's just like, no. It's just like, you know, I have to say, be the bearer of bad news here, but I think Ron has really hit a great point here, and Marcus as well, is that, you know, we have silos at work too, okay? And a lot of times something that you think would be communicated to one silo never makes it there. And I think this is the only logical explanation in this case for that happening, because otherwise, I mean, it doesn't make sense across the board, because, you know, you also figure too, you know, this would bolster Phantom 4 Pro V2.0 sales. This will bolster smart controller sales. You know, not that the smart controller needs any, you know, talk up or anything, but I think it'll help bolster it. Now, one of the real interesting things here with the smart controller and with this update is they talked about, I don't want to get the name of it, Sky Talk. Okay. Now, we remember, you know, Mel put out a great video on how to connect to YouTube. And if you're watching tonight, Mel, that was a fantastic video that you put out. Apparently now they actually have this. I have not downloaded this yet, so I don't know, because if I download it, I lose my beta firmware update and I lose my ability to control my Phantom 4 Pro V2.0. So I'm not real hep on downloading this as of just yet. But this DJI or Sky Talk, go to DJI Lab under settings to enable. When Sky Talk is enabled, live view from the aircraft can be shared with friends via third-party social media apps. Hopefully the integration with this is a lot better. I mean, Mel put together a great workaround for everybody, and kudos to you, Mel, for doing that. But right now, you know, we don't know. It's an unknown. I don't know anybody that's downloaded, so I just don't, you know, have no clue as to what this is.
Bill, you know, the Skydio 2 has that feature already where it can record audio on the screen recording.
Really?
Well, I wouldn't even say screen recording, just if you, any video, it has the ability to audio record from your phone's mic, and then it creates a separate file for it. So you can, when you're editing things, you can just line up exactly with the video file.
Well, you know, my Samsung Galaxy Note 10, they added a screen recorder this year as part of the normal offerings with it, and it's not one of those ones where, you know, if you download it, you know, usually they have ads or anything, but part of that is it records audio, and it records pretty crystal clear audio. So like when I go out there and I'm flying my Mavic Mini, I'm getting crystal clear audio when I'm flying with that. And of course it's right in front of me and the microphone's there. So it comes through and it comes out really clear. And I really like that. So,
hey, Bill, before we get off the smart control, can I ask you a question? I mean, well, an opinion. When the Mavic 3 releases, we'll say later this year, I'm just being vague, if it ever comes out. Do you think that, number one, do you think it'll work with the smart controller? And number two, do you think you'll be able to buy just the drone if you already own a smart controller?
I would say yes and yes. I would say this was an oversight on DJI's part. And I would say within short order, probably within less than a month, you're going to go ahead and see this, because them re-releasing the Phantom 4 Pro V2.0, they want to sell those. Okay. They just don't do this just for grins and giggles. Okay. and them coming out with a firmware update, which they haven't had in a long time for this, for the smart controller. Yeah, I think, Ron, I said yes and yes are the answers to your questions. I absolutely see this happening, and I see it happening in short order. I think they'll realize that they've made their mistake. So stay tuned. When I get more information on this, we'll pass this on.
Can I hit you with one more quick question, and then I'll let you move on?
Sure can.
Any chance that the Mavic Air 2, which Lauren said will be out in about 2 months earlier in the chat, any chance of it having OcuSync 2.0?
Well, my guess is probably no. And the reason I say that is I know when we talked to Rick Smith, he was telling us during one of the shows when we had him on the show here that OcuSync 2.0, I guess physically the board that it requires, it's a larger type of a board as far as electronics are concerned. So I don't think they can fit it in the Mavic Air 2. And I think also too is I think it would make the Mavic Air 2 probably, it would bump it up in price, and it probably would go over $1,000. So I think with something like that, I think they probably want to keep that price point under $1,000, even with a new Mavic Air 2. But expect a lot of updates on that. So I'm sure we'll get some information on that. So, all right, now we're going to go ahead and kind of shift gears here a little bit. Now, everybody knows about the FAA remote ID, and we had dedicated a whole show to talk about this. And, one of the things that I have to say is there's been a lot of discussion about this. Now, I went ahead today, and I was doing some looking today, and I came across something that was real informative. Now, before I get to that was Russ from 51 Drones, who has a great channel. He put together a fantastic video on FAA remote ID. One of the things he posted today on Twitter, he's been out looking at the comments section for the FAA remote ID. And one of the things that he said about it was that a lot of people are cutting and pasting and putting answers in there for their comments. And, first of all, before we get into our conversation here, one of the things that I highly recommend, guys, is, open up a Word doc or a notepad, type up what you're going to say, proofread it, spell check it, and then go ahead and put it in there. Okay. And don't say, I don't want to see it. It's a pile of garbage. Screw you, FAA, or get vulgar with them. Be articulate, be clear, be to the point. Say, I think the FAA remote ID proposal is not acceptable for, and then list your reasons. Okay. And get into them. Don't go, leaving comments, because a lot of the comments that are out there are just, I think a lot of what we're seeing is not very good. All right, let's go ahead and get into this. Now, you probably know who Brendan Schulman is. He's the Vice President of Legal Affairs for DJI. He has a great Twitter account. I recommend, if you get a chance, follow that account. Well, he put out and we're going to go over this here. We strongly support drone remote ID, but not like this. And I'm going to go ahead and share this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to read some excerpts from this. And then we'll have some discussion on this. Okay. Now, DJI wants governments to require remote ID for drones, but the FAA has proposed a complex, expensive, and intrusive system that would make it hard for drones in America, and that jeopardizes the success of the remote ID initiative. Instead, we support a simpler, easier, and free version of remote ID that doesn't need a cellular connection or service subscription. Read on to discover why the future of drone innovation in America is at risk, and how you can make your voice heard between now and the FAA's March 2nd deadline for submitting comments on the official government website. And there's a link for that here. Now, I'm just going to touch on some of these points here. Introduction, it says, everyone understands why cars need license plates. Drivers have to be accountable. But what if instead of just a license plate, your car was also legally required to be connected via internet to a privately run car tracking service that charged you an annual fee of about 20% of your car's value and stored 6 months of your driving data for government scrutiny? Would you think the government has gone too far? And then there'll be a link to this in the description. Brendan gets into a lot of good things here. The stark reliance on unproven systems could shut down expensive Hollywood productions, complex industrial operations, and even life-saving rescue missions. And I want to stop right there because one of the things that I've said all along here is the technology from the FAA remote ID proposal, it's not in place right now. And I think they put this on paper. Some people from the FAA got this together and then decided, we're just going to go ahead and put this proposal together. And they put pen to paper, but they never, I don't think the technology is there to be able to handle the proposal that they did. Now let's go ahead and go down a little bit further here. FAA inexplicably declined to adopt good advice. DJI may have been the first to deploy remote ID, but it wasn't our idea, and neither is a recommended way to implement it. In 2016, Congress instructed the FAA to convene industry stakeholders to determine how to accomplish remote ID based on consensus standards. The FAA convened 74 people to serve as stakeholder representatives on the agency's remote ID aviation rulemaking committee. 75% of those ARC members represented law enforcement, telecom providers, airports, security technology vendors, and others who stood to gain from remote ID, while fewer than 7% of the members would primarily face burdens. Despite the skewed membership composition, the ARC produced a final report that did not recommend a mandatory internet-based service. Rather, the consensus recommendation was for drones flying under existing FAA rules to perform remote ID via a radio broadcast, with network solutions as an optional alternative. The ARC's many months of work demonstrated how broadcast technology scored best for inexpensive retrofit, ease of compliance, and performance. Network-based solutions involved highest costs, burdens, and privacy intrusions. I'm going to go on down here some more. Between now and March 2nd, 2020, please take the time to read the FAA's proposal and submit comments at this link. DJI is preparing tips and suggestions for what to include in your comment, but we already see drone operators of every kind sharing ideas among themselves. So be sure to consult your favorite social media sites, user forums, and community groups. The FAA proposal is a watershed moment for the future adoption of drones in America, and the FAA needs to hear from everyone who could be harmed by its insistence on a complex, expensive, intrusive, and over-engineered remote ID solution. Together, we can ensure the drone innovation is protected and that the safety and security of the skies are assured. Okay, this is a lot, and I highly recommend you guys taking a look at the link and taking a look and reading this. This was really well worded, and take the time to read through this. Read through this because it's really well done. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'll start. So this is spot on. The only thing I didn't like about DJI's version of it is that anybody with that app, general public, can see where you're flying your drone and what you're doing. And I don't understand why the general public needs to know. I appreciate the authorities. If you're someplace that you shouldn't be, they want to be able to identify that drone. They want to be able to know where the pilot is at. But DJI made some great points in there. Why is the burden on us as hobby drone pilots to pay for a very complex system that nobody even knows if it'll work yet? That could break down and then nobody could fly. If the whole purpose of this is to accommodate commercial uses of the airways, which it is, then why aren't they paying or carrying the burden of what that cost should be? And secondly, just like they said, nobody knows where your car has a license plate on it, but nobody from the general public can look at your license plate and say, hey, that's Bill, the drone reviewer. But the authorities can. Should be no different with drones. You don't have to, people can't track you in your car. You go down to the corner grocery store, the general public can't pull up an app and say, hey, I want to know where that guy's going. So why are drones any different than that? It is a solution looking for a problem. So that was Rick Smith's video was great on Drone Valley. He made some great points. Russ at 51 Drones did as well. And then this from DJI, I think should be enough that we can coalesce our, as individuals, our thoughts, and we need to put our comments out there, just like you said, on the FAA website. You know, the battle is not lost yet, and it's just like Rick Smith said. If it goes into place as is, it's definitely going to put a big damper on hobby drones, no question.
Ron, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm too, along with Marcus, is very concerned about the privacy aspect of it. Somebody in the comments, I already forget who it was, it's a while back already. He said that, you know, people pay for OnStar, you know, in their GM vehicles, and that tracks you. And he's right, but nobody in the general public knows where you are. You know, you're only tracked by the car company. And that's what Marcus is getting at here. We don't care if the law enforcement tracks us, or even maybe the maker of the drone or whatever, but not the general public. And again, people have already broached this may be illegal from the privacy aspect. Like, for instance, who's responsible if somebody tracks you from that app and comes and murders you?
Yeah.
Who is responsible? Is the people that make the app responsible? The FAA? I mean, who takes liability if that happens? And that's number one. And number two, also there's a lot of talk in the chat about Rick Smith's recent video where he went on a little rant about these new FFA rules. And one of his points was that, you know, about, you know, we're letting the commercial drones push us out of the airspace. If they're commercial drones, why aren't they flying above 400 feet? Why are they coming to our airspace? And Marcus touched it too. And why are the hobbyists taking the whole burden of the cost of putting this system in? If they're doing this for the commercial drones, they should bear the cost of this, almost entirely the cost of it, not the hobbyists. I mean, we were already here, you know, we were here and we were doing well. We very little accidents. Our safety record was better than almost anything. I mean, Rick made this point. He said when they put trucks on the highway, whenever the truck replaced the trains and put them on the highway, they didn't make the cars get out of their way. They had to coexist with the cars. They didn't clear the road off so the trucks would get through any faster, but they're doing it this time with drones. They're clearing the hobbyists off the road or out of the airways, so the trucks, in this case, the delivery drones, can take those fast lanes. And why are only drones being picked up? Why is it any other form of transportation ever have these laws, you know, burden them or whatever? I hope that made any sense, Bill.
Yeah, that sure does, Ron. You know, and you know that opening paragraph where Brendan talks about license plates and tracking cars and things like that. Okay, let's look at it in reality here. Okay, how many thousands of people are killed in automobile accidents in the United States alone each year? Okay, and how many people are killed by a drone in the United States each year? Okay, let's you know, zero. You're right, Marcus. Okay. Let's call that like it is. And I think you both brought up a good point in, you know, about the commercial airspace. Why aren't they could fly at 1,000 feet, okay, or above 400 feet AGL, and then everything would be fine, okay? They wouldn't invade our airspace. And the other thing is, and I think a lot of people lose sight of the fact that commercial drones really are in their infancy. They've been talked about for a long time, but they really haven't been perfected, because the commercial drones that I've seen and the ones that they've used in Australia and the ones that they're using over in Virginia, they're more of a vertical takeoff and landing than really a drone. And they're pre-programmed. Okay. There's no first person view for the operator of the drone. You know, they're programmed to go to a set of coordinates, you know, lower the goods via a cable to the person, retract the cable, and then move on. I mean, that's pretty much what that is. And, you know, from what I remember talking about with Ari, you know, Remote Pilot Australia, I think is Ari's YouTube channel. He was saying it didn't work real well in Australia. It just that he didn't view that as a success. And we really haven't heard a whole lot about that. Now I know UPS has touted. They showed this video where a drone was coming out of the top of a truck and then going and delivering it in all this. Okay, things like let's talk about like these drones. How do they operate? Obviously they're going to be using batteries to do this, and they're going to have limited range and limited range capabilities. Even let's say they can fly 5 or 6 miles. Okay, they're going to have to operate out of some kind of a hub. Okay, and this is going to cost Amazon and UPS and other companies like that millions and millions of dollars. Why isn't that money, I think, better spent in building up their current infrastructure to work on deliveries? I know Amazon now has fleets of trucks in towns to be able to deliver products, and UPS has been very timely with things as well too. So I think this as far as the commercial aspect of it, I think it's years off. I don't think we're going to be seeing that anytime soon. I don't think you're going to see your Mavic 3 being dropped by a drone and you're in your front porch and you're being able to take delivery of it like that. That's not going to happen for a long time. All right. The other thing that I wanted to touch on here is, this whole thing about the technology. All right. As far as remote ID is concerned.
Hey, Bill, can I interject for a second?
Go for it.
I just wanted to make a counterpoint to what you were just talking about. Well, it's timely about why are they wanting to use the airways as opposed to improving what they have on the ground? I think that I'll be honest with you, that part of it makes total sense to me because there's a lot of room up there in the sky and you don't have to build as much infrastructure. And, I know you're in a growth area, Bill, and I know I am. There's a lot of pressure being put on our highway system. So I think they're trying to alleviate some of that. And especially at CES where we saw where they were even talking about drone taxis, etc. I think that's the point of that, is they're trying to relieve some of the pressure on the ground. And I don't know why it all can't work together. I mean, I don't see why one has to be exclusive to the other in us as hobbyists. Either way, I think it can be made to work. But anyway, that's the only point I wanted to make, Bill.
No, that's good. And I'm going through some of the comments here, and I know Dan's in here, and he's brought up some good points, John of Drones brought up the FAA is asking us to agree to adopt a technology that does not exist sometime in the future, or else they'll make flying illegal and call the local cops on you. Yeah, And Okie Tom, he says delivery by drone, I think will be 15 to 20 years away. I mean, they're trying to force something here that I don't think is going to happen. And one of the other points that I wanted to bring up is this. Okay, if you think DJI is going to fold their hands and not do anything on this, and other drone manufacturers as well, you got another thing coming. Okay, because DJI's bread and butter, okay, as far as making money is concerned, both in the consumer space and in the commercial space, is in the United States. Okay. They don't release their sales figures, but I can tell you this. Okay. They place a lot of emphasis on selling drones, DJI drones here in the United States. So they're not going to sit idly by. And this proposal that Brendan put together, or this response that from DJI, was spot on. Okay. It really, with the exception of what Marcus said, I agree with this 100%. Okay. I don't think that we're going to, I don't think, and also to remember this, that someone had, and it may have even been Brennan, had talked to the director of the FAA, and he was in agreement that it was too complex and too complicated and needed reworked, because this technology is not available. It won't work the way it is. It won't work the way it's written down. Because if you properly architect, say, an IT system, all right, you've probably put it through some kind of a computer model, or you've probably actually physically tested it out somewhere, okay, in some type of in some type of a building. Okay. You've put this pen to paper. For example, I'll give you an example. Where, I work for public supermarkets, and one of the things that we have there is a lab, but it's not a lab like you think it's a lab. Okay. It's a lab that emulates any kind of store that you want in public. And, Publix has, like what, almost close to 2,000 stores. It will emulate any one of those stores. Okay. And it has different combinations of equipment for each store. All right. And this is where a lot of testing occurs. And this is something I don't think that they have actually done. I don't think the FAA has done this. They've put this proposal together. They've probably written it down. They probably put it on a grease board, probably said, you know what, this looks good. It makes sense. Let's do this. And it got to paper. That's my thoughts on this. That's one of the things that I'm seeing here.
Bill, can I interject real fast?
Absolutely.
I think a lot of big companies, they want to get this in place before the technology. They don't want to actually spend, we'll say, millions and billions of dollars developing all this technology until they're sure that these rules are going to be put in place. That's why we're so far out, even though I agree with everybody, drone delivery for the most part is not coming for 10, 20 years, but they want all the infrastructure in place as far as these rules and regulations before they start investing millions into this whole drone delivery system. So that's just the way big companies operate. They want everything tied up nice in a bow before they start investing heavily.
Yeah, Eagle Eye View Images, their airspace should be 401 to 500 feet. And that makes perfect sense, because if in the other part of on this equation, and we haven't touched on this, is the AMA. Okay. They're not a small organization. They have a lot of people. And I know that they've tried to organize this, because of anybody, okay, who stands to lose, they stand to lose a lot. I mean, the opportunity to go fly your model plane at one of their fields is something that now I'm a member, and I've actually been to a couple of their fields, and it's great. I mean, you got to wait your turn, because usually on a busy weekend, but if you go on non-busy times, you pretty much can get right up in the air. And that's the beautiful part about this, but about the way it is right now. But with these proposed rules, it's going to change everything for them. I mean, they won't, they usually charge, I think it's about $100 a year. Some clubs do for dues, and they help maintain runways, and they have picnic shelters and whatnot, and a lot of them. And there's a very nice one up by where I live. So, it's going to be a change for them as well too. And a lot of people don't take this into account. And, they're actually a fairly big organization. Now, as far as money is concerned, I don't think they have the kind of money there as far as the say is concerned, but I think they're trying to get organized and trying to have some kind of a response here. And I think they do need to have a response as far as that's concerned.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it really does here. So, we're going to wrap that up right now. I think, like I said, I think DJI is not going to sit on its laurels on this one. And, we got a great response from Brendan on this, and, and let's see how this plays out. But one of the things that I want to tell everybody is this, and John of Drones, hobbyists versus lobbyists. That's a good one. One of the things is this, and I've already said it, and I keep saying it, guys, is if you want to respond back to the proposal, and there's links in this article to do so, to the comments section. Okay. Be clear, be articulate. Don't be vulgar. Don't cut and paste somebody else's comment and take it as yours. Okay. Come up with something original. I disagree with the FAA remote ID proposal because boom, it's too complicated. I don't like cellular service. I don't want to see them, I agree with it. Law enforcement getting the information, but private citizens shouldn't get my information. List some reasons down there, if you need to do that. I think it's something that you need to just, have an idea of what you're going to say, type it up, and, put it in a Word doc or put it in a notepad, spell check it, and then put it out there. And also, you're not limited to one comment. You guys can go out there and comment multiple times. So please do so. You know, I can't say enough to be articulate, to be clear, to be, you know, to come across intelligent when you do make these comments out there. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know. Gentlemen, do you have any thoughts about this? Any closing thoughts on this subject?
Yeah, mostly, Bill, I'm going to say that everybody just put a thoughtful letter to the FAA out on their website, respond to it. This is our opportunity, and this is our only chance that we're going to get to maybe have an effect on it. You also might consider writing to your congressman as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Good comments, Marcus. And I agree with you know, Marcus. You know, get on that website, put an intelligent comment down, something that, you know, that makes sense, that they can't easily reject. And two, just don't stop there. The FFA, they're not lawmakers. You know, Marcus pointed out, your congressmen are the lawmakers. They just work for the law. You know, they kind of work for the lawmakers. So really, you know, you want to go above the FFA's head and contact your lawmaker. He's the one that's getting hit by the lobbyists, not the FFA themselves. The lobbyists has pressured your congressman to do this. So they're ultimately the ones that you have to get to. Now, I mean, you comment to the FFA, they can push back for you. But really, if you can get to the source, the congressmen, the ones that are getting hit up by these lobbyists to change this stuff for the big corporations, that's getting to the heart of the matter.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, it's also worth mentioning that both Lauren and Bill Thomas are saying it was there a risk assessment done. So to my knowledge, everything that I saw in that 300-page document was anecdotal. I don't know that there were, I could be wrong, but I don't believe there were any studies, unless you guys know of them.
No, I didn't see any at all. And, you know, I didn't see any, what they call proof of concepts either, as far as that's concerned in that document. I mean, you know, whenever you put together a proposal like this, and especially, you know, from having worked in IT for over 30 years, you have to have a proof of concept that this is going to work. You know, in terms of, you know, the storage space you'll take up, the response time for users, you know, just a whole host of things. You know, you have to have these things down before you go to VPs to get their approval, to get the budgeting for the system. You have to get that. And I think this was done half shot. I don't think that they really thought through this. You know, they just wanted to get something out there, and what they got out there was a disaster. I just, for no ifs, ands, or buts, it's a disaster. But like Brendan said, you know, we agree that we need, you know, Brendan's right. We do need remote ID, but not like how the federal government has proposed it. So let's hope and cross our fingers that this gets taken care of. Wanted to kind of wrap up with the drone that everybody's been talking about. Okay. You know, it was definitely the star of the show out at CES 2020, the Autel Evo 2. You know, and I know Marcus had some hands-on time with that. Marcus, about the Evo 2, what are some thoughts that you have after having visited with Autel and had some hands-on time with it?
Hey, so I do want to make a point about, and I'll be interested to see if Lauren had a different experience. But the guys that I talked to in the Autel booth, none of them could answer any substantial questions. When I asked them questions that got into detail about the drone, they'd all say, well, I don't know, it's too new. Maybe such and such over here will know, you know, and didn't offer to get the answer. So that was a little bit disappointing, but the drone itself is very, very substantial. I mean, you pick it up, it's heavier than your Mavic 2. And I don't know, you look at all those sensors on there, and everything we've seen so far looks very, very positive for that drone. And I'm going to say it's very likely, you know, we got to see it rolled out more yet, but it's very likely that's the new king of the hill.
Ron, what are your thoughts on the Evo 2?
Well, you know, I mean, you know, we mostly know, mostly talk about the 8K model because that's the one that's currently released. if I was going to maybe even consider purchasing an Evo 2, would be the one-inch sensor model, which I guess will be released later. But Bill, let me ask you. I asked you somewhat of a similar question last night on the ZinoNation, but I'm going to ask it to you a little bit different tonight. Of the 4 drones released at CES last week, which one would you be the most likeliest to buy, and which one would you be the most unlikeliest to buy? And I'm not asking you what you thought the best. I'm asking you which one are you most likely to buy, and which one are you the least likeliest to buy of the 4?
Well, of the 4, it would be the Autel Evo 2, the 6K with the 1-inch sensor.
Okay.
Because that low light capabilities with the 1-inch sensor, that's well documented with the Mavic 2 Pro. I mean, we see that time and time again. All right, the low light capability is off the charts. Probably the second one would probably be the Evolve 2.
Right, the least likeliest to buy because of the price.
Well, right now because of the price, yeah, and that's purely because of price. Okay, if it wasn't for the price, that I'd be placing a pre-order for that right now. And by the way, if you do place a pre-order for the Evolve 2, they'll give you $159 battery for free. So
there you go.
Mean, for that kind of who's going to pass that kind of deal up? So
hey, can we ask Marcus the same question we just asked you?
Yes.
So if for 1 and 2 for me, of course, the Evo 2 would be number 1.
Which Evo 2?
I would probably just get the 8K. Well, maybe that 1-inch sensor, I suppose.
It's only $300 more, right?
That's very true. That's a good point. So actually, probably the 8K. Not that I would do it any justice. I'm just going to state that right at the beginning. That's kind of above my skill level. But it, like the point that Bill made, makes a lot of sense. That 1-inch sensor takes in a lot more light. So even if you were shooting at 4K, you're still going to get a much better picture. The other thing that, Bill talked about the Evolve 2. To me, the Evolve 2, it's just way above my head. And it would just be a waste of money for me because I wouldn't be able to do a drone like that justice. But the Power Egg X, absolutely. I can see that thing looked like a lot of fun, and it looked very versatile. So that's my second choice. How about you, Ron? You got to get in on this too.
Yes.
I'm giving the same answers as you guys are. The 1-inch sensor version of the Evo 2 and the and not the Evolve 2. But okay, well, since we all said the same thing, okay, what would be the second most likeliest drone of the 4 you would buy? Marcus, you go first.
The second
most likeliest you'd buy
that I would buy. Those Swell Pros look pretty interesting, I suppose. I gave you my 1 and 2, so I don't know what you mean by second.
Well, no, I thought, okay, your 2 was the Evolve you wouldn't buy. My question was, which one would you most likeliest to be buy, which you said was the Evo, and I thought you said the one you would least likeliest buy would be the Evolve because of the price.
That's very true.
Yeah. So okay, say you can't get the Evo of the 4 new ones we're talking about. Would the second one be the Power Egg, or would it be the 2-wing drone, the V-copter?
Yeah, not the V-copter. We gotta see more about that before we know the promise of that product. But the Power Egg, yeah, I would be all over the Power Egg.
Hey, is it true, Marcus, that the V-copter is shipping in February?
Well, that's what they say.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Bill, what's your second choice after the Evo?
I'm kind of torn between the Power Egg and that Swell Pro, because I know I've seen some demos of the Swell Pro, and that's an incredible drone. It can do an awful lot. And
which one, for the small one or the big one?
The big one, the one that can drop the life preservers.
And how much is that?
Oh, it's Marcus. You have any? Did they pricing out there?
It might be in a brochure I have, but I'm not. I just don't know.
I think it was probably around at least 2,000. I think.
Okay.
If it does. Now, what I know, there's some Swell Pro dealers in the area here because of all because we're so close to the Gulf. So,
Right.
that's a real interesting concept. I mean, I really like that. Well, a lot of them use those as well too. Not only for that, but for taking bait out. Going, way beyond what you can cast. When you're out there deep sea fishing. And it's really been a lucrative business as that's concerned, especially for like fishing charter boats. So, that's definitely a very interesting drone, especially in a climate like we have down here, where there's, especially with a lot of water here. So,
Good point, Bill. I want
ah,
that mug.
there you go.
Oh,
See, everything tastes better out of a Bill the Drone Reviewer coffee mug. Okay.
Yes.
That's what I
Valerie
hear.
already said that when we had our giveaway, and she is so right. All the giveaways, I did get everything finally mailed out. I am awful sorry. It's just been absolutely crazy here. Had a crazy weekend. I did not get a chance. Ken Dono had a wonderful meetup this weekend. And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to go because I had some things to do around the house. Valerie and I had some things to do around here. And unfortunately, it was that weekend. It also happened to be there were at least 35-mile-an-hour wind gusts where they were, so they couldn't fly. But they did have a chance to meet up and talk with some people. So hopefully next time the weather will be more cooperative and my schedule will be free so I can get down there. I think that would be absolutely fantastic. Gentlemen, closing thoughts for tonight.
Hey, I'm really excited about that Zino 2 showing up. I don't know about you guys.
Ron.
Like Bill, I think Bill told me earlier today, he checks his status of his Zino 2 3 times a day. So I'm going to have to start checking it more. But I think we're down to where we can, what do you think? 2-3 weeks is probably, our time right now, whatever I would say, we may have it by February 1st, if not, shortly after. So that's my first thought. My second thought is, I hope everybody takes the new proposed regulations seriously, and like everybody said in the show, you make some good comments. Some people say, well, it won't do any good and whatever, and I don't know about that. I mean, I think the comments last year when they were putting in the what did they call the whole thing where you used to call the airport and then you just did it by the app? What was that whole process called?
LAANC.
Yeah, I think that all the pushback on that got those laws a little more loosened up for us. So I think we could do the same thing this time around. Maybe I'm overstating that, but I think the pushback last year helped. So let's try it again. Let's go in as a big group or whatever. So that's my thoughts, and we're going to throw it back to Bill so he can get us out of here for night and get everybody back to watching TV. Wait, Bill, what'd you think of LSU last night?
Okay, I was kind of happy about that because I had a bone to pick with Clemson because they beat Ohio State, and I wasn't real happy how that went down. That was a disaster game. I mean, there were some bad calls in the OSU Clemson game, and I'm just gonna go there. I'm not gonna go any more than that. But after having lived in Ohio for 30 years, I'm a little partial to the Buckeyes as far as that's concerned. So,
Gotcha.
I agree with Marcus. Zino 2, probably in the next couple of weeks sometime. It's just off the charts exciting. I can hardly wait. I am so pumped and excited about it. And Hubsan has really done their homework. And I think out of the box, I think we're going to see something pretty good. So stay tuned for all that. The smart controller update. If anybody actually has done that, drop a comment on the video and let me know, because I'm interested to see how it's gone. I'm kind of taking a back seat on this one because if I download it, I lose my beta firmware update that has the Phantom 4 Pro V2.0. So I'm kind of holding back, and I'm actually going to contact DJI support to find out. And that's one thing, and I'll keep you guys posted on that, is if they go ahead and they'll include the Phantom 4 Pro V2.0 with this. So stay tuned on that. With the FAA remote ID proposal, and with DJI's response from Brendan, which was excellent, engage your elected representatives as well, your congressmen, your senators. not only to write them by email, but one thing that I found that's very effective, and I want to piggyback on both what Ron and Marcus said on this, is call the offices. They record, they don't necessarily record your call, but they do record what you say and what you have to say. There are staffers there in these offices, and there may be a local office, or there may be one in Washington D.C. where you live. Definitely do that, because it makes a difference. Our 2 U.S. senators here in the state of Florida, I'm planning on engaging them, and I'm planning on calling their offices, and I'm planning on calling my congressman's office in Washington, D.C. to let them know about this. And I'm planning on getting together. I'm going to spend this weekend, type up a comment, proofread it, and then get it out there. So, take some time when you do this. We have till March 2nd. So, we probably have over a month and a half before we can't comment anymore. Take your time, but write something articulate, plan it, thought it, put your thoughts on paper and get this out there. So, and I want to thank everybody in the chat. It was a great chat tonight. A lot of great conversation about the FAA remote ID. My whole thing is, don't have an attitude of, that the sky is falling and it's the end of the world, but be proactive, take some action. And like Ron said, with LAANC, I mean, we actually voiced our opinion about that, and the FAA put together a pretty good system as far as getting approvals within, within airport space. So again, for Ron, for Marcus, thanks so much for being a part of Rotor Talk Live. And remember, as always, it's a great day to fly. Take care, everybody.